Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. We have a lot that's about to happen. There's already been a ton that's been happening. Of course, if you've been tracking the channel, you know this. We've been having interstellar object 3i Atlas perform its closest approach to the sun on the 29th. We just had Halloween, so the veil was thin, a very energetic time. We actually just got out of a G1 geomagnetic storm. And there is a huge amount of activity on the far side of the sun, multiple giant solar explosions, one of the biggest periods of solar activity in decades, but directed away from Earth. In fact, directed towards interstellar object 3i Atlas and also the planet Venus. But those sunspots are now about to rotate to the Earth-facing side of the sun. We actually can see them right here. At least we can see their coronal loops and some of their explosions over the past 48 hours. So here we see this. There's the first one right there. There's three big ones. We have one in the northern hemisphere, one in the equatorial. There's that second explosion. One in the equatorial region, one down in the southern hemisphere. There were two big sunspot groups that rotated out of view about 2 weeks ago. They formed on the Earth-facing side. We had one here, one there, just like this. They rotated out of view. And then starting around this kind of oppositional point on the far side, they started to split and they formed a third giant sunspot. So we actually don't know exactly how big they are, but on our helioseismic data, they look quite significant. What's so interesting about all this is that right now our sunspots are at the lowest that I have seen them in months, if not, I think actually in a few years. Our daily count dropped down to 21. So there's this polarization, this dichotomy that exists now where we have almost no sunspots on the Earth-facing side right now. We're just getting these skies to rotate in, but now soon, within 3 days, all of them are going to be on the Earth-facing side, and we're going to have an explosion of solar activity. Here we see these three sunspots with our helioseismic. So we're going to get the northern hemisphere first, second the equatorial, then the southern hemisphere. 1, 2, 3. It's probably going to take about 3 to 4 days, especially like for this one, to rotate firmly into view. So very strange how right now it really is the calm before the storm, where there's very little energy that's being released from the Earth-facing side in terms of extreme ultraviolet light and X-ray flux, because those require sunspots and these sort of solar explosions, solar flares, to be emitted in any high amount. So right now it's very, very low. And each sunspot is a little magnetic vortex which emits a magnetic field out into space and interacts with the solar wind and helps actually determine the solar wind properties in unique ways. So we're in a very calm stretch right now, but that's all about to change very, very soon. We see our sunspots here. They went down there at the beginning of October to about 60, went back up. We're hovering over 100, plummeted back down to 21 today, but expect this to go up dramatically in the next few days. So in this video, we're going to do a quick space weather report as to what is happening here on Earth and with the sun just in general. We're going to go through solar activity, the sunspots, any sort of earthquakes that have been occurring. Also the geomagnetic storm that we just got out of is a G1. We do have a coronal mass ejection flank impact expected to arrive fairly soon. It's a low confidence, but that may also bump geomagnetic volatility up again. And also we'll just cover a few other things. So hello and welcome everyone. I'm your host Stefan Burns, geologist, geophysicist, space guy, cosmic bro. Labels don't really mean much, but if you want to get a sense of what I'm interested in, there you go. We could talk about a whole bunch of things. We could just spend an hour talking about spirituality and consciousness if we wanted to, and that'd be just fine with me. But we're going to do a quick space weather report today because these are the most active sunspots that we've had in a long time. Now, back last October 2024, we had quite a few big explosions from the sun that resulted in a G5 minus, G4 plus. So basically a very strong long duration geomagnetic storm. Go back to May of 2024. We had a G5 storm called the Gannon storm or the Mother's Day storm, May 10th to the 12th. Extreme geomagnetic activity, lots of explosions from a group of sunspots on the Earth-facing side. But what happened on the far side is at least comparable to that. And honestly, I think it was more significant. If you look at the coronagraph imagery and all that, it was a very active period. They're still going off. If we again look at our big sun here, boom, there's the first one. We'll get the second one coming up. They've been nonstop now for nearly 2 weeks. So right when we had that superior conjunction of 3I Atlas, we had our first gigantic coronal mass ejection on the far side, boom, out like this, not hitting us. That we did get a elevation in proton flux as a result of that. Just some high energetic particles came into Earth. And they've been nonstop since then, effectively. There's been like 1 day or 2 days where things simmered off. Today's kind of an example of that. You'll see these first two, and then for the past like 18 hours or so, 12 hours, 18 hours, there hasn't been much activity, but they are still going. And the other thing to keep in mind is that this coronal hole here is in advance of these sunspots there behind. So what that means is that this is going to be connecting to the Earth with its high-speed stream. It's tran-equatorial, so it's right here in about 10 days or so, and then it's going to, those sunspots will be exactly in that Earth center line at the same time. And this coronal hole right here has been linked to the biggest earthquakes of this year. So we've been having these coronal hole high-speed stream impacts. The solar wind density has been dropping afterwards, and all of a sudden we get these really big magnitude 7, magnitude 8 earthquakes. Not every single time, but actually like the past 5 times or so. It's a pretty crazy reoccurrence interval. So that is coming up. It depends really on if this coronal hole gets larger, but it looks like it's maintaining size. It's been rotating around the sun now, I think about 10 times or so for quite a long duration. So we could get this very unique synthesis of this coronal hole high-speed stream connecting to Earth, dropping the solar wind density, and then big solar explosions occurring right in Earth bullseye, and those coronal mass ejections racing to Earth at unprecedented speed. That is a heightened possibility in about a week or 8 or 10 days or so. It certainly is possible, probably about 7 or 8 days. So I don't know how likely that is, but it's definitely more likely than normal because all the conditions exist. So before we get into it anymore, let us just quickly look at the Earth Evolution web store. This is my web store that I have a whole bunch of holistic wellness products and merch. So a lot of you have purchased a lot of products here and have greatly enjoyed them. For example, the shirt that I'm wearing right here, the Cosmos Within shirt, that is our latest merch. It's available. You can check out the product page here, size small to 4XL. You see the artwork on the back painted by my dad earlier this year when he was in a creative burst. The Cosmic Pyramids comes in white and midnight blue. I love this shirt because of the sacred geometry. See this? It spirals, the Fibonacci spiral goes right over your solar plexus. So really amazing energy to this shirt. Fits nicely. We also just mixed up a bunch of herb coffee. So this stuff is incredible. You guys love it. It's 50% single origin organic Peruvian coffee, mixed also with chicory root, roasted dandelion root, and lion's mane mushroom. All of it organic, sourced from the best suppliers. And that combination is really pretty much perfect for enhancing your focus and productivity and creative flow, and also building those new neural connections. And so expect to see like neurocognitive improvements from that. It's really incredible stuff. Like, I absolutely love this. My dad's drinking every day, and the dandelion root, the chicory root, they're both relatives to each other. They're really good for helping to reduce inflammation, improve gut health, fortify the microbiome towards greater symbiosis, so more symbiotic microbes, less pathogens. Dandelion root's really good for your prostate, for example, your bladder. It's a blood purifier. It's all these great things. It has inulin. It optimizes that microbiome, gut-brain consciousness axis. So if you really want to connect to these more etheric energy fields, then you got to start with the base building blocks, which is your microbiome and your health and your wellness. And so you can drink your coffee and not get zapped out and sluggish in the afternoon due to the coffee slump. Like, you can have your coffee and drink it too with the herb coffee. We just mix up a bunch, super fresh right now, so you can place your order if you want. We'll ship that out right away to you. Of course, we have our other products. For example, our spirituality here is amazing. 4 ingredients: purple lotus flower, chamomile, passion flower, mugwort. Those 4 together synergize to create this really amazing relaxation blend that helps you sleep, enhances your dreams, perhaps even promotes astral travel. People that have been working on that or have the ability have reported some benefit from the spirituality for that. So that's something you may want to check out if you're into that. And just in general, and this is all organic, just in general, herbs are really good for your health and wellness. They're pumped full of phytochemicals and micronutrients and more. So, you know, all these health claims have a may on them. Now, the research is actually quite compelling. If you start to research into what different herbs can do, it's incredible. But, you know, everything has to be may do this, may do that, because nothing's guaranteed. But you start improving your health and wellness by drinking herbs more consistently. These loose leaf herbal tea blends, they're called tisanes technically. Like, you're going to see some dramatic results from that. I can attest to that personally. Other things on here as well. So make sure you check that out if you're interested. You can get this all at earthevolution.com/store. Let me help you, help me help you, because I started this store as a way to give back to everybody, because I don't want to be just talking about space weather and stuff. I also want to provide solutions for people, because the stuff that you buy in grocery stores for the most part is garbage. And so this is the highest quality stuff. I sell it at the most fair prices I can. And so that's all available for you if you're in the United States. So yeah, let us go into the sunspots. Here we are, 3 big sunspots right now on the far side of the sun, but about to rotate into view. And it's this one there and this one that were the originals, though they're kind of closer together. And then this third one, just kind of formed in the past few days, and really kind of reminds me of Orion's belt, which is interesting. So my kind of rule of thumb, I've mentioned this many times, is 1, maybe there's something. 2, okay, pay attention. 3 in a row, there's something there. So 1, 2, 3, I just feel like there is some sort of synergy between this, and the effects of them interacting together is going to be non-linear. So it's not just going to be 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. It's going to be 1 + 1 + 1 = 8 or something like that. Because each one of these is a very complex magnetic field. You have a lot of flux pushing out from the sun. Right now we are in solar maximum, getting close to the descending phase, but the sun is very active. Its magnetic field is mid-flip. So you don't have any clear polarity with the solar magnetic field, which means the entire solar system is effectively in magnetic field chaos as a result of that. And if you have just one of these, that magnetic chaos is localized to one spot. If you have 2 of them and there's some distance between them, okay, yeah, they're kind of interacting, but again, there's some distance between them. You put 3 of them there, I know from experience, that sort of three-way dynamic, when there's 3 people and they're all kind of bouncing off each other, things can get wild pretty quickly. The 3-body problem. So that's what we have on the sun, rotating into view in just the next few days. In fact, we can actually see this first one right now on the sun. Here we have our latest HMI imagery, and let me refresh this because we actually have even more up to date if I refresh it. Here is that first sunspot group starting to rotate into view. So that guy is very dim. You don't really see it that well. Let's punch in. But it's just the beginning, the leading part of not only this sunspot cluster, but the other 2. So the entire triple sequence. So sunspots right now are very, very low. They are 21, as we can see here. This is our past 2 days, our intensity gram Earth facing side. So basically no sunspots, just this guy, a little bit of, just stuff scattered over here. Nothing there. And now we're starting to get this rotate in. Again, we see that with our helioseismic. We see that with our sunspot number. So typically when you get a big drop, that's when you get a big surge back up. It's that increase in volatility created by some sort of rapid change. So that is where we are right now. We've been seeing this polarization with the sun, where the sun has effectively been really kind of has a split personality. On half of it, it's very calm, cool, and collected. And then on the other half, it's just going crazy and nuts. And well, maybe that side's going to rotate into view, this side, and it's going to calm down, simmer down. Hey, I don't know. That's up to the sun to decide. But so far, the trend has been, this has been very, very active. That trend has not at all stopped. So I think it's more likely to continue than not, especially as we go into some significant energetic influences for November, December. We had the full supermoon on November 6th. So November 5th, November 6th. That's going to be a very powerful energetic event regardless of solar activity. Then you also have a really interesting new moon on November 20th or so. And let's, might as well talk about that now because I just mentioned it. So let us pull our solar system scope, which will allow us to see the solar system, planetary geometry, and more. And here we go. We see our planets. This is set for today, November 1st, but let us just move our Earth forward to about the 20th here. And, that's December, sorry. Let's go right here to the 20th November. You'll notice something very interesting, okay? So let's actually go back to where we are right now. November 1st, right here. Look at Mercury. Mercury there is about to perform an inferior conjunction with the sun. And that's on the 19th and 20th of November. Notice that we have our new moon at the same time. So see how Mercury is rotating and the moon rotates into that alignment? Okay, that's interesting. Now we have this full supermoon on November 5th and 6th, which means that the moon is closest to the Earth. And that's aligned with its full phase. So that means that when we have a new moon, it's going to be a micro moon. Why is that important? Well, that means that the moon is going to be as close as it could be to the sun. It'll be about 420,000 kilometers away from the Earth, whereas the full supermoon is going to be about 356,000 kilometers away from the Earth. So it's going to be as stretched away from the Earth as possible. Mercury is going to be in alignment with all this, with its inferior conjunction. Here is where it gets really wild. We also have this in alignment with Uranus. So I have to give credit to Dan Waits for this. He recently released his November astrological forecast, and he talked about this moon. And the moment he mentioned the alignments, I knew that we had some significant planetary geometry. So I'll link his November forecast in the video description for you guys to watch once the live stream is over. Definitely recommend that you check in at least with his monthly updates. So really, really good tying into world events, what could happen. His track record's pretty spot on. So big shout out to Dan Waits with World Astrology Report. So yeah, Sun, Mercury, Earth, Uranus alignment. And quoting him, he says this is one of the most significant moon cycles of this year, if not the most significant this year, and one of the most significant of the past few years because of that. And it's really quite striking because you also have Saturn and Neptune in almost near conjunction. So this group right here is sextile to that group right there, which is sextile to Pluto. So you have some very significant heliocentric planetary geometry at that moment in time on November 20th or so. And as a result of that, I think it's likely that we're going to see an enhancement of solar activity and or geomagnetic activity. It's hard to say exactly what the level will be. This is a forecast. It's not like a 100% guys it's going to happen. It's just I think there's a much higher likelihood because we've seen time and time again, especially this year when I started implementing this heliocentric planetary geometry space weather forecasting method, that it's connected. And this is based off of the work of, oh gosh, what's his name? Robert Nelson. And he has a great book called Cosmic Patterns. It's very simple. If you have a bit of understanding and reading astrological charts, it's a lot easier to understand. But this is based off of his pioneering work in the 40s, 50s, and 60s working for RCA. When they didn't have the space weather forecasting tools that we do nowadays, he found a method based off planetary alignments that has a great track record. They tried to discredit him, and well, if you just simply look into the history of it, you realize, oh, they can't discredit him because it's all there, right? So this is a very significant geometry, and the thing is, Nelson talks about how Mercury is the activator because it has the highest orbital velocity and it's the closest to the sun. So he specifically talks about how when you get these planetary geometries to set up, and you're more likely to have them when the outer gas giants are in some sort of synodic cycle great conjunction sequence or an opposition or something like that. When Mercury comes in and activates the overall geometry, that's when things really pop off. And so we have Earth moving slowly here. Again, let's back up here. We have Earth slowly moving into this alignment with Uranus, but then Mercury sweeps in at the last second, activating all, and the new moon also activates it as well. So it's really quite powerful. And the other planets too, Mars, Venus, and like for example, dwarf planet Ceres, Eris, Chiron, they're also making significant angles as well. You have this Venus, Ceres, Eris, Chiron opposition that's active at this moment in time. So it's a very significant geometry, November 20th. So all of November honestly is looking kind of insane. But we'll just have to wait and see. That's a long range forecast for y'all. You heard it here first. November, let's say November 17th to the 23rd, I would say there's a much higher likelihood of there being enhanced space weather activity. Now we've just had enhanced activity here on Earth. In fact, here is our geomagnetic fluctuations for the past, here we go, for the past 10 days as provided by GFC Potsdam. And we see our HP 30 index, which is a 30-minute measure of geomagnetic volatility. And we see our HP 60 index and then our KP index. We'll stay with the KP index, a little easier to read. We see that our geomagnetic volatility, the magnetic field swings here on Earth, was reduced, basically normal, in late October. And look at how it started to ramp up right at the end of October, actually peaking there effectively on Halloween when the veil is thin, and now it started to ramp back down. So this was a G1 storm. It wasn't a crazy geomagnetic storm. G1 is classified as minor. G5, the top of the scale, is extreme. So this was a minor storm, but it's more than zero. And actually someone commented in the chat before the video started that they are in Iceland. And of course, if you heard, they just had record snowfall for October, 40 centimeters like overnight. And he mentioned that the aurora was so strong that he was able to see it through the clouds. So and that's just from a minor storm. So there's been a lot of activity happening here on Earth energetically, and there's a lot more room for it to ramp up. That's the thing. It's already very active right now with 3i Atlas, all the stuff that's been happening there. Of course, if you've been watching my channel, I've been covering that for you. We have these big sunspots rotating in. All that activity on the far side does not mean it doesn't affect us here on Earth. It's just more indirect. And it could also, if you look at like kind of the symbolism of it, the sun represents our consciousness. So tons of activity has been happening on the far side of the sun, like the subconscious mind, and now it's rotating into the conscious mind. So if you've been having stuff flying around and going crazy in your subconscious, there's not the biggest connection for most people between what's happening in their subconscious and what's happening with their conscious mind. That may now start to like rise up from the depths and become very, very noticeable and impossible to ignore. And then you add in potentially some really big solar storms on top of that, and we could have some G5 storming like coming up. I mean, this could be significant. These sunspots, they could give us like a Carrington flare, like a Carrington solar storm impact. That's possible. I can't say it's going to happen 100%. That would be, it just wouldn't be the right thing to do to freak people out like that, to give 100% definitives. You know, all you can do is forecast and assign like possibilities, probabilities to it. But it's certainly a heightened probability at this moment in time. So we got to be ready for that. Here we see our X-ray flux. It's already been increasing because of those sunspots on the far side rotating in. They've been having these explosions over the past 48 hours or so, and some of that light has actually been kind of extended out from the sun and therefore hitting the Earth. So that's why we see our X-ray flux increasing. If you go to our 7-day view, we see that things were flat, and actually they were down in the B class range, which is quite low, but things are now starting to ramp up. This is still not significant. We're still not in M-class territory. We're definitely not in X-class territory, but those sunspots really haven't rotated into view yet. They're just starting to. So this truly is the calm before the storm. Enjoy it while you can. Unless all of a sudden these sunspots go like this and disappear, we're going to have some increase in energetic activity. there's no guarantee of big solar flares or big solar storm impacts. But if those sunspots do at least anything, they don't disappear immediately, we are going to get an increase in X-ray flux on the Earth-facing side. That increases the ionization of the ionosphere, creates a stronger global electric circuit. And they have stronger electric currents flowing in the upper atmosphere, flowing through the Earth's surface. You have greater geomagnetic activity, stronger diurnal rhythms, a stronger electric field gradient going through the atmosphere. It's not like these things never happen, but when you go from very calm conditions to heightened conditions, you have that change. So that's what's happening right now. We can look at our electron flux to see that our radiation belts recently just started to recharge. They were bottomed out for about a week now. Below the threshold, then they jumped up dramatically after that geomagnetic storm, which is what happens when you get these solar storm impacts or strong solar wind impacts, whatever. Afterwards, they get recharged. The energy plasmasphere are surrounding the Earth, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 Earth radii out. That recharges, and it then all of a sudden increases. And this is by orders of magnitude. So here we see a 10x jump, a 10x jump. This is particles per cubic centimeter per second squared. So, or just per second. So we see that we've gone up about 1.5 orders of magnitude. So maybe about a 15x or so. So quite significant. This is increasing and means that if we do get some impacts coming in, that we have enough energy in the plasmasphere to precipitate down to trigger greater geomagnetic volatility. We can also look at our coronal graph, and here we see that there really hasn't been much for the past 24 hours. We can go back, you'll see this solar explosion right at the end there. See that guy? That's the most recent one to go off. But if we look at our past 24 hours, really nothing's been happening. More like the past 18 hours. So we are really truly in the calm before the storm. Maybe the storm just completely fizzles out, but I just wouldn't really put money on that. Like I'd say it's like a 5% chance that all of a sudden this just really just, the whole thing fizzles out really quickly. I just don't think that's the case. We have this critical planetary geometry on November 20th. Those sunspots, it's November 1st right now. Those sunspots will be rotated all the way to the far side of the sun, just now having moved off the limb. Let me actually show you here, okay? With our big sun. Those sunspots, which are rotating in about 15, 16, 17 days, are all going to be rotating off the limb. It takes 2 weeks to go across. So November 20th is actually after those sunspots will be on the Earth-facing side. So maybe they, like the one that's trailing, will do some big activity right here. Maybe we get some new sunspots that form behind them, and then that is what triggers the geomagnetic activity, solar activity around the 20th of November. It's not guaranteed to happen again, by the way, but if that critical planetary geometry does result in solar activity, it's either going to have to be from that trailing sunspot right here or some new sunspots that form right behind them. So keep that in mind. This may not be the end of the train. We could get a fourth or a fifth. That critical geometry that I've been mentioning is suggestive of something like that playing out. Here we have our space weather model as provided by NOAA. We see this coronal mass ejection launch out there, give us a flank impact around the 2nd of November. So this is a fairly low confidence, but it is a possibility, and they don't peg any sort of geomagnetic storming to this at a G1 level or even like, anything like that. They just say active conditions are possible. We did have a big plasma filament blast off recently. I shared that on Twitter X. That's at Stefan Burns Geo. If you want to check me out, I post updates there in between my YouTube videos. So StefanBurnsGeo. It's linked in the video description. They first said it wasn't going to hit us, then they reanalyzed it. And so I think this is that event because we see this one going to the north, and that launched from the northern hemisphere. So it looks like this is going to hit us, but just with a flank impact. That's what it kind of looked like on the on the actual solar imagery, is this big plasma filament that went like this. Also with these sunspots, they're unstable magnetic fields, the coronal holes. Expect a lot more stuff like that. So we could get a lot of plasma filament action too. There's a whole bunch that's happening probably in the next week, 10 days or so. We also have our earthquakes And so here we see our USGS latest earthquakes map. And we can set this for right now, just today. You'll see that our strongest earthquake was a magnitude 5.2 South Sandwich Islands, but we did just have a magnitude 6 just outside this 24-hour range. I'll set that to the 7-week in just a moment. But this is our area here that's been experiencing some activity, a magnitude 5.2 and a 5. And then also we see this 5.0 Papua New Guinea. Actually, look how quiet the Ring of Fire is, right? Calm before the storm. Like, these things play out in multiple ways. So calm before the storm in solar activity, calm before the storm in terms of earthquake activity, in terms of maybe societal events and conscious bursts of energy in the collective or individual, right? This full supermoon going through the micromoon, new moon on the 20th looks to be a very energetic time. From a whole bunch of different domains and perspectives, the space weather perspective, the planetary geometry perspective, the astrological perspective. Believe it or not, they're also confirming some of the stuff that I'm talking about. So when you have multiple things lined up together, you probably should pay a little bit more attention, right? Because that's really when it's like when everything's lining up that you have a higher chance of it actually coming true, because there's multiple things from different domains all in agreement. Now, if we go here to our 7-day, let's put this on, we will see our magnitude 6 earthquake that did occur. And maybe it was downgraded. It was downgraded to a 5.9. So it came up as a 6 on my earthquake app, but it was a 5.9 according to the USGS on the Southeast Indian Ridge. So as you can see with our 1-week view, if I go to the highest magnitude, that we've had actually quite a few magnitude 6 earthquakes over the past 7 to 10 days. This is just showing the past week. We did have a bit of earthquake burst, but now things have cooled off since then. And I think it's likely to ramp back up, starting with really the connection of that coronal whole high-speed stream, which is probably about a week away. But you can't really it's hard to really get earthquakes exactly. So just in general, things are very active. 3i Atlas is still closest perihelion. Just in general, for the end of the year, I think we're going to be seeing big earthquake activity. It's hard to say exactly when, but that coronal hole connection, I think, is going to make the probability more likely. And then also, if you get some extreme geomagnetic storming in the wake of that, I would also expect there to be an uptick in earthquakes because of the powerful electric currents and more. So and then also, when you have these calm periods, you can typically expect a few days afterwards for there to be a burst of activity to bring it back up to like normal or average levels. So when people look at the record and they're like, oh, there's no change or trend or anything like that, it's because everything gets smoothed out. But if you look at it in high resolution, you see these trends and rhythms that are connected to space weather events and more. So that would be my recommendation. Anyone that's interested in this, to look at it in high fidelity. Also, one last thing, I discussed this on Twitter X, and I thought I'd share it here with you so you all could see it. And I was reminded of this event by Randall Carlson because he made a video talking about 3i Atlas and comets, the sun, and earthquakes and more. He mentioned my work a little bit there. We actually met at Cosmic Summit. I'm not sure he remembers that, but regardless, he watched my latest video and he was a fan. And they showed this video here from 2011. And I've seen this before, but now is a good time to talk about it. Look at this comet flying into the sun, and then immediately afterwards, we get this huge coronal mass ejection launching off. So check that out. This comet was, I think it was coming in from the far side, and then that explosion occurred on the far side. So it's not necessarily, we are looking at a two-dimensional view of it coming in from this side and then the explosion on that side. And people are like, well, how is it a comet impacting one side of the sun, triggering an explosion on the other side? It's actually coming in, I think, at an oblique angle like this. And then that zone launched a coronal mass ejection off towards Mercury in a superior conjunction, which you've been watching my videos for a while, and especially the past few ones, I've been discussing how we see heightened solar activity during the superior conjunction of Mercury and either slightly before or afterwards. Just in general, that time window seems to be connected to these big solar events. And well, this one wasn't the trigger, but it certainly didn't help. It creates a stronger electric field gradient to the sun, and then you get this comet to fly in and destabilize that, like boom shakalaka. So comets clearly, just based off of this, clearly have an impact on solar activity. Now this was a comet hitting the sun, like diving in, disrupting all those electromagnetic fields, and then boom. But we also see these disruptions further out as well. And in the last video I did live stream last night, we talked about the complex magnetic and plasma environment, you know, the magnetic field, electric field, and plasma overall environment of comets. This is a really good illustrative diagram. This is also simply not fully telling the full story, because you get this isn't really showing the electric currents at play. Like, you're going to get these electric currents that are curling in around this bow shock. You can make this model a lot more complicated. And look, it's already quite complicated. So we have a lot of comets right now in the inner solar system. They're going to start pulling out at the beginning and middle of 2026. But right now, 3I Atlas is close. It's interstellar. We don't know what it is, right? We have A6 Lemon approaching its perihelion on November 8th. Don't forget that, right? We have this full supermoon. A6 Lemon does its perihelion. We have other comets all very close in. So there's a lot of activity right now happening in our solar system. The sun is very, very active. Those big sunspot groups are rotating into view over the next few days. This coronal hole will connect with us once it reaches geoeffective position. We may be getting hit with by solar storms before that occurs. We could start getting these guys to blast off big coronal mass ejections pretty soon. And if they kind of have a skew towards Earth, like this way, right, then we could get hit early. Though usually if they're over here, they'll blast out like that. So that's your update for today. The calm before the storm is real, and hopefully it stays that way. But overall, the forecast looks like it's going to get more stormy. Like, things are going to increase energetically. So we've been effectively having easy. I think it's only going to get more wild as we go into November. So thank you all so much for watching. I've been your host, Stefan Burns. This is what we cover on the channel, what's happening energetically here on Earth, by looking at all the different domains and factors. So earthquake activity, volcanoes, and energy field disruptions, geomagnetic storming. We look at solar activity, space weather, planetary alignments, resonances, and geometry. Then we expand further out to look at interstellar events and comets and all these things. So if you like the sound of that, then please subscribe. Thank you all for watching. I'm wishing each and every single one of you well. Welcome to November. We got 2 months left in the year. Let's make it count. We have that critical planetary geometry coming up at the very beginning of 2026. We'll just spend 1 second looking at it here. If we move this forward right to January 9th, look at how the planets make a crazy alignment there at the very beginning of January. So we get this is really rare. You don't see alignments like this every day. Superior conjunction of Mercury, Venus, and Mars, Earth, Jupiter behind. 3I Atlas is effectively going to be right here. This alignment is in line with where 3I Atlas flew out of the constellation of Sagittarius. And then if we go forward just a little bit more to right here around the end of February, we see that great conjunction between Saturn and Neptune. So yeah, it's just going to continue going forward, okay? Like, we are just in a very energetic phase at a longer rhythm. So I really recommend you take your time to rest and relax when you can. That's why I have the Holistic Wellness Store, Wild Free Organic, to help support all of you with what is happening. We are fully stocked up with all of our products, so I recommend you pick that up. We will ship it out as soon as we can, available to everyone in the United States. Thank you all, wishing you well, and I'll see you all in the next video.